Welcome back to our daily deep dive into all things AI. Today is, well, it's a lot to cover. It feels like every single day there's a whole new wave of AI news and developments that just, have the potential to completely reshape the world that we live in.
Yeah, it really is remarkable how fast things are moving, and today is no exception. We've got news about massive investments, legal challenges, groundbreaking research. It seems like AI is touching every corner of society now.
Right, and that's what we are going to dive into today. What are the big stories that everyone should be paying attention to, and how might they actually impact our lives? So let's start with, I think, the biggest story of the day. President Trump's announcement of Project Stargate. This is his push for, well, he's calling for it. It's really an incredible amount of money. $500 billion in private sector investment dedicated to building AI infrastructure here in the U.S.
Wow, $500 billion. That's a staggering amount of money.
It is, and it really shows just how seriously, well, at least how seriously the former president is taking the potential of AI.
Yeah.
I mean, to put that into perspective, that's more than the entire GDP of many countries.
It is, and it really underscores the belief that AI is not just some passing fad, but a truly transformative technology, a technology that will reshape industries and economies for decades to come.
Yeah, and according to the Financial Times, though, it seems like the details of this Project Stargate are still a bit vague at this point.
Yeah, the report mentions that there isn't a fully developed plan yet, and the funding hasn't been completely finalized,
Yeah.
but the ambition is definitely there.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I found really fascinating about this story is that OpenAI is apparently the sole intended customer for all this infrastructure, which raises some questions, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on one hand, it makes sense. OpenAI is one of the leading AI companies in the world, and they've been behind some of the most impressive breakthroughs in the field.
Like ChatGPT.
Exactly. But on the other hand, it does raise concerns about potential favoritism and the concentration of power within the AI industry.
Yeah, I mean, if all of this government-backed infrastructure is going to just one company, that does give them a pretty significant advantage over everyone else.
And it could stifle competition and innovation in the long run.
Right, and it kind of feeds into this larger conversation that's been happening about, the potential for monopolies forming within the AI industry.
Especially with companies like Meta also making huge investments.
Right. I mean, Meta Platforms announced that they plan to invest as much as $65 billion in 2025, specifically on projects related to AI.
65 billion. That's almost as much as the entire US military budget.
It's incredible. And this investment from Meta includes things like, well, they're building a giant new data center. They're increasing hiring in their AI teams. I mean, they're really going all in on AI.
It's clear that they see AI as the future of their business, and they're willing to spend whatever it takes to be a leader in the field.
And I think that's something that we are seeing across the board right now. I mean, it's not just Meta. It's Google, it's Microsoft, it's Amazon. All the big tech companies are pouring billions of dollars into AI research and development.
And it's not just the tech giants. We're also seeing massive investments from governments around the world.
Yeah, like China, for example. They have stated very publicly that their goal is to become the wanted leader in AI by 2030. And they're investing heavily to make that happen.
And then you have countries like the UK, they're trying to position themselves as a global hub for AI research and development.
So it's clear that AI is a global race, and everyone is trying to get ahead.
Exactly. And that brings us to another interesting point. With all this talk of billion-dollar investments in giant tech companies, you have to wonder who will actually be able to use and benefit from all these powerful AI tools.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, is it just going to be the big corporations and governments? Or will smaller companies and individuals also have access to these technologies?
It's a question that a lot of people are asking. And it's one that I think is going to become even more important in the years to come.
Well, and I think that's what makes the open source movement in AI so interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of pushing back against this idea that AI should be controlled by a small handful of powerful entities.
Right. Open source AI is all about making AI technology more accessible and available to everyone.
And we're seeing some really exciting things happening in the open source space. Like, for example, DeepSeek is a company that is offering open source AI models. And they're doing it at a fraction of the cost of what the big tech companies are charging.
Yeah, that's a really promising development. And it could potentially level the playing field and allow smaller companies and researchers to compete with the giants.
And it's not just DeepSeek. We're seeing a lot of other companies and organizations embracing the open source approach to AI.
And I think that's a really positive trend because it's going to lead to more innovation and more diversity in the AI landscape.
Absolutely. And it's going to empower more people to use AI to solve problems and create new things. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
For sure.
But even as the technology advances and the open source movement grows, the legal and ethical landscape surrounding AI is getting increasingly complex.
Yeah, there are a lot of big questions that we need to answer as a society.
Like, for example, Indian publishers are now joining this wave of copyright lawsuits against OpenAI. They're alleging that their content was used without permission in training these AI models.
Right, and these lawsuits are raising some really important questions about intellectual property rights in the age of AI.
Yeah, like how do we protect the rights of creators? Especially when AI systems are able to learn and generate content based on vast amounts of data.
It's a tricky issue, and it's one that courts around the world are going to have to grapple with.
And it's not just about copyright. We're also seeing lawsuits that are focused on the potential harms of AI.
Like the lawsuit against Scale AI and Outlier.
Right. This one is being brought by contractors who are hired to help steer AI systems away from harmful content.
Yeah, they were basically tasked with moderating and filtering out things like hate speech and violent imagery.
But the lawsuit alleges that these workers were exposed to disturbing content without adequate support or protection for their mental health.
And it's raising concerns about the psychological toll that this kind of work can take.
It's a really important issue.
Yeah.
Because as we develop more powerful AI systems, we need to make sure that we're not putting the well-being of the people who are working on them at risk.
Absolutely. We can't forget about the human cost of AI development.
And these lawsuits are just one example of the many ethical and legal challenges that we're facing as AI becomes more powerful and more pervasive in our lives.
Yeah, it's clear that we need to start thinking about these issues now, before it's too late.
Absolutely. And speaking of thinking about these issues, the UK government just revealed their plans to regulate AI.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it seems like their approach is going to be quite different from what the EU is doing.
That could create some complications.
It could. And it kind of highlights the fact that we're still in the very early stages of figuring out how to regulate AI.
Yeah, there's no international consensus yet, and different countries are taking different approaches.
Which could make it difficult for companies that are operating in multiple countries.
For sure. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, and it's something that anyone who is involved in AI needs to be paying attention to.
Absolutely. Whether you're a developer, a researcher, a policymaker, or an investor, understanding the legal and ethical landscape of AI is going to be crucial in the years to come.
Agreed.
It'll be interesting to see how these different approaches to regulation develop and what impact they have on the industry. But amidst all the legal battles and regulatory discussions, the innovation in AI just keeps accelerating.
Doesn't it?
This week, OpenAI launched their new AI agent called Operator.
Right, operate.
It's essentially a highly advanced personal assistant. It can interact with websites and apps through a web browser to perform tasks like scheduling appointments or making online purchases.
Wow, so it's like a supercharged version of what we have today with things like Siri or Alexa.
Yeah, exactly. It's a step closer to having AI agents that can truly manage our digital lives for us.
It sounds incredibly convenient. But is it ready for prime time?
Well, according to ZDNet, it's still in its early stages and can be a bit buggy at times.
So it's not quite ready to take over our lives just yet.
Not quite, but it's a glimpse into the future of how we might interact with technology.
And I imagine it's only going to get better and more sophisticated over time.
Oh, absolutely. The pace of development in AI is just incredible.
It's mind-boggling to think about how quickly things are progressing.
It really is. But for now, it's important to temper expectations and recognize that these tools are still under development.
Yeah, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Right. It's also worth noting that Operator is currently only available to paying subscribers of ChatGPT Plus. Ah, so there's a paywall.
Yeah, it costs $200 a month.
Which raises questions about accessibility, right?
Exactly. Will these powerful AI tools only be available to those who can afford them?
It's a valid concern, and it ties into the larger conversation we were having earlier about who benefits from AI.
Absolutely.
But hey, at least the open source community is also working on developing AI agents.
Right, that's encouraging to see.
It offers alternative options and helps to ensure that AI technology isn't solely controlled by a few large corporations.
Definitely.
And speaking of OpenAI, they also made news this week with a major upgrade to their Canvas feature in ChatGPT.
Oh, right, the Canvas feature.
Yeah, it can now render HTML and React code.
Wow. So that means it's now a direct competitor to Claude's artifacts.
Exactly. It's a pretty significant update.
Hmm.
And it shows that OpenAI is really serious about providing developers and creative professionals with the tools they need to build amazing things with AI.
They're definitely staying ahead of the curve.
But OpenAI isn't the only one pushing the boundaries of AI research.
Yeah. Google's DeepMind is exploring something called mind evolution.
Mind evolution.
Yeah, it's this fascinating idea of using evolutionary algorithms to enhance AI thinking.
So they're basically trying to simulate the process of evolution to create more intelligent and adaptable AI systems.
Exactly. It's a pretty ambitious research direction.
It is. It could have profound implications for the future of AI.
But while DeepMind is looking toward the future, Apple seems to be taking a step back.
Oh, how so?
Well, they've reportedly suspended their AI-generated news alerts due to concerns about accuracy.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it highlights the fact that even with all the advancements in AI, we still have a ways to go before we can fully trust these systems to be reliable and accurate.
Especially when it comes to something as important as news.
Exactly. We need to be very careful about the potential for bias and misinformation.
And we need to develop robust mechanisms for fact-checking and accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But shifting gears a bit, there's also some really exciting news about how AI is being used to enhance training for sensory motor skills.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, researchers are using AI to revolutionize how we train for things like surgery, sports, even playing musical instruments.
Wow. So AI is becoming our personal coach.
In a way, yes.
It's incredible to think about how AI can help us to reach our full potential.
It really is, and it's a great example of how AI can be used to augment human capabilities rather than replace us.
Exactly. It's about empowering humans, not making them obsolete.
And speaking of empowerment, Hugging Face just achieved a major breakthrough in shrinking the size of AI vision models.
Oh, I saw that. It's a game changer.
Right, they've made these models small enough to run on a smartphone.
Which means that powerful AI capabilities can now be accessed on devices that most people already have in their pockets.
Exactly.
It's a huge step forward in making AI more accessible and affordable.
Absolutely. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities for how we can use AI in our everyday lives.
It really does. But with all this excitement about advancements, it's also important to acknowledge the challenges that come with the rapid pace of AI development.
Right, like what?
Well, TechCrunch published an article this week about how the intense pressure to keep up with the latest breakthroughs is causing a lot of stress and burnout among AI researchers.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's a demanding field, and the competition is fierce.
And it's important to remember that behind all these amazing AI advancements, there are real people who are working incredibly hard to make it all happen.
We need to make sure that we're taking care of the people who are driving this revolution.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the researchers.
Right.
We're also seeing concerns about the impact of AI on creative industries.
Oh, yeah, like the complaints from designers about all the AI-generated images flooding stock photo websites.
Exactly. It's making it harder to find authentic human-created content.
And it's raising questions about the future of creative work.
Will AI eventually replace human artists and designers?
It's a question that a lot of people are grappling with.
And there's no easy answer.
Yeah, it's a really complex issue with a lot of unknowns. And speaking of unknowns, it's not just the creative industries that are being disrupted by AI. The healthcare industry is also seeing some pretty massive changes.
Oh, absolutely. AI is transforming healthcare in so many ways.
And one of the biggest stories this week is Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. He's reportedly backing a $1 billion funding round for Retro Biosciences.
Retro Biosciences.
Yeah, they're an AI healthcare startup. They're focused on using AI to develop new drugs and treatments.
Wow, $1 billion. That's a huge investment.
It is, and it really shows how much faith Altman has in the potential of AI to revolutionize healthcare.
I mean, it makes sense. AI is already being used to accelerate drug discovery, to personalize treatments,
Yeah.
and to improve diagnostics.
Right. And with this kind of funding, Retro Biosciences could really make some major breakthroughs.
Absolutely. But it's not just about developing new drugs. AI is also being used to address some of the more systemic issues in healthcare.
Well, for example, there's this new AI tool that's helping patients fight back against health insurance denials.
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of health insurance companies now use algorithms to automatically approve or deny claims.
Right.
And these algorithms can be really opaque and difficult to understand.
So you might get denied coverage and you don't even know why.
Exactly. And that's where this AI tool comes in. It can analyze your denial and automatically generate an appeal.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. It gives patients a fighting chance to get the coverage they deserve.
So AI can be used to help people navigate the complexities of the healthcare system.
Exactly. And that's really encouraging to see.
It is. But it also highlights the importance of ensuring that these AI systems are used ethically and responsibly.
Absolutely. We need to be very careful about potential biases in these algorithms.
And we need to make sure that they're not being used to discriminate against certain groups of people.
Right, like people with pre-existing conditions or people from low-income backgrounds.
Exactly. And speaking of ethical considerations, Character AI is facing some legal challenges right now. They're claiming First Amendment protection for their chatbot platform.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a really interesting case.
So they're arguing that their chatbots have the right to free speech.
Exactly. And this case could have some pretty significant implications for how AI-generated content is treated under the law.
It's a fascinating legal question. Are these chatbots simply tools, or are they capable of expressing their own views and opinions?
Right, and if they are granted First Amendment rights, what does that mean for things like liability and censorship?
It's a complex issue, and it's one that courts are going to have to grapple with.
And it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
But while the legal battles rage on, the open source movement in AI continues to gain momentum.
It does. It seems like every day there's a new open source AI project or platform being released.
And Meta is really pushing their Llama model platform as the solution for building large language model applications.
Like LAM.
Yeah, they're really embracing open source development.
Yeah. It's a strategic shift for them. And it's a sign that they recognize the power of community collaboration in AI.
Absolutely, and it's not just Meta. PipeShift, a company that's focused on streamlining open source AI deployment. They just secured $2.5 million in funding.
Oh, wow. That's great news for the open source community.
It is. It shows that there's a lot of interest and investment in this area.
And there are reports that over 80% of companies are shifting towards open source generative AI.
Wow. So open source is becoming the dominant force in AI.
It seems that way, and I think that's a really positive development.
Me too. It's going to make AI more accessible, more innovative, and more democratic.
It really is an exciting time to be following the development of AI.
It is. It feels like we're on the cusp of something truly revolutionary.
We are. There's no doubt about it.
And it's important that we stay informed and engaged.
Absolutely.
We need to have thoughtful discussions about the ethical and societal implications of these technologies.
And we need to work together to ensure that AI is used for good.
Agreed. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of AI. As always, it's been a fascinating conversation.
It has. Thank you for having me.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with another deep dive into the latest AI news and developments. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and stay curious.